Hey everyone, it's Priya Krishna. I am a food writer and the author of the cookbook Indian-ish, and we are here in my home kitchen in Brooklyn, New York. I decided to partner with my friends at Pop-Up Magazine to throw a virtual dinner party, and I am lucky enough to have as my guests tonight two creatives that I really admire. Jia Tolentino, she works for The New Yorker, and she is the author of the book Trick Mirror, which I have sitting on my bookshelf right now. It's fantastic. And the second is Jefferson, who is a writer on all the shows I'm obsessed with right now. The Good Place, Succession, WATCHMEN, which was easily my favorite show of last year. We're gonna chat. We're gonna eat my white bean stuffed poblanos from my cookbook Indian-ish. We're gonna drink shikanji, the salt and pepper limeade from my cookbook. We call it Indian Gatorade in my family. And it's gonna be great. So you'll find all the details and information about the recipe so you can follow along right below. And without further ado, let's get to cooking. A little background, these poblanos are a recipe I got from my mother. I wrote my cookbook with my mom, and when she first moved to Texas, she discovered all sorts of really amazing peppers that were native to sort of the Southwest region, and to Mexico, which borders Texas. And she loved the really wonderful smoky flavor of poblanos. So she started thinking about all the things she could do with poblanos. And one of those things was slit them, stuff them, and roast them. And I think she initially meant to stuff them with rice, and then she didn't have any rice. So she saw what she had in her cabinet. She had beans. She made a really nice mixture with beans and onions and chili and garlic and lime and all of these flavors that were familiar to her as a cook, and stuffed them into the poblanos, and it turned out it was even better than rice. So this is really easy. You don't want to have them. You just want to create a slit so that it's like a little pocket for stuffing the peppers. So I'm just gonna go whoop, boom. All right, this is all set. I'm gonna put these aside while I prep the rest of my mixture. So here we've got, the garlic's gonna be used for later, but we've got 2 chopped yellow onions. I ground 2 tablespoons of coriander. I'm using olive oil. Use whatever neutral oil you prefer. My mom really likes avocado oil. She's really into that lately. Use whatever you're feeling. So our cumin seeds have turned like a nice 1 shade darker of brown, so it's time to add our onions and our ground coriander. Just gonna toss around our onions, make sure they get nicely coated with the spices. Your kitchen is gonna smell amazing. White beans, garlic, lime juice, salt. Last touch is a chili. The thing I like to do is freeze my peppers, and then I will show you, I microplane them into stuff, because frozen, they microplane really beautifully, like this. Ooh, that's gonna be a nice kick for dinner. I hope Jia and Cord can take the heat. What I'm gonna do is just stuff the peppers. Here's what we're going for. Stuffed all the way to the brim with beans. Boom. Our peppers are ready to go. We're gonna stick them in the oven. 45 minutes, 350 degrees. Okay, so while our peppers are in the oven, I wanted to make up something to drink. So we've got our shikanji. I made it, it's chilling in the fridge. Just gonna put a nice cube in there, a little pepper on the top, and there we have it. Cheers. Cheers, Jia and Cord.
Cheers.
Cheers, Priya.
Thank you, Priya.
Clink.
For dinner. Can't wait to eat it. I'm gonna want those stuffed peppers. Hi, Cord.
How's it going, dude?
Just the strangest summer of living memory. How are you?
Yeah, talk to me. I'm doing well. As well as can be, I think. Tell me a little bit. I mean, I think that this is a crazy time, no matter who you are, but I think it must be a crazy time to be pregnant right now. Feels so insane?
I got really lucky. I was expecting pregnancy to be like this experience of sort of like a loss of autonomy and like bodily invasion. I was afraid of not feeling in control of my body, but it's actually been really chill. It's this kind of surprisingly sweet and comforting physical experience.
When do you do?
I am delivering the first weekend of August, dog. It's crazy.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's
So
nuts.
soon.
But it's been also like, but it's been nice, you know, after we left pandemic phase and entered pandemic/revolution phase, you know, it was also nice. Like I've been to a handful of protests. Like probably haven't been out there as much as I would be normally because trying to be a little bit more careful, I guess. But it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's kind of nice. I was like, I'm glad I'll be able to tell this little child that they were out there.
What does it feel like sort of seeing the world that you're going to bring a child into?
I had to kind of come to this really utilitarian acceptance of the fact that, you know, I think like life is worth living, right? Like that being human and being alive and sort of, and like, I don't want to say that in a way that it's like, obviously my child will be lucky, it will have a good life, but I don't want to say like, no matter what your life conditions, it's good, you know, but there is something about that, right? Just like the experience of like loving anything as a human almost seems like enough to be worth being alive almost. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Every day I'm equal parts optimistic and pessimistic.
right.
I think that's, but at the same time, I would say that maybe skews a little bit more optimistic.
Yeah, there's something about the way that people are talking about, like the conversation is on a different level right now. Because I think there's something about the pandemic that made people reevaluate. It's like, okay, to what degree is the state protecting us? Like, to what degree do these structures serve us?
If I did believe in God, I would say that this moment in history felt like truly a moment in which God would have said, like, okay, like we need to press pause on everything. Everybody needs to rethink their relationships with money. Right. Entire governments need to rethink their relationship with commerce and capitalism. Right. Everybody needs to rethink their relationship to work. Everybody needs to rethink relationships to things like mortgages and rent. And like, right. We need to rethink our relationship to the climate and how we sort of like how we interact with nature. It felt like this was truly a moment when the entire world could come together to rethink these things. And instead, we just couldn't wait to get back to like senior frogs and spring break and stuff. And it is that to me is the pessimistic part. But then I think that, you know, I'm able to look past that and see, you know, teenagers and young people in the street fighting for injustice and fighting against injustice rather, and fighting to change these entrenched power structures, as you were talking about, and that makes me a little bit happier. But I can't help thinking that this was such a missed opportunity for the entire world, but I think America in particular. I was going to ask if you think that it must, but in what ways do you think that this experience of being pregnant and then having a child is going to change your relationship to work?
Well, this is another thing that I think I over prepared myself for, like set my expectations rock bottom, possibly through editing so many women's essays about, you know, like the imbalance of domestic labor and whatever. And one thing that I do genuinely still feel lucky about on an everyday basis is the fact that the things that we're thinking about vis-a-vis the world that, you know, we'd fixate on no matter what. I feel really lucky to get to process that in work. You know what I mean? It's really nice to not have to separate your deepest concerns from what you spend your time doing, right? And I think that that's what makes writing so it's like a kind of like holistic absorption that you can't really get anywhere else. You're working on Station 11. Are you?
I was with that. We're done writing that. You've read the book?
Yeah.
So the thing about that book that I think is interesting is that it's really about the way that people come together in sort of in the collapse of society. It's about how the majority of people are going to come together and work together in order to sort of build something new. So it was nice to be working on something like that in the wake of this.
But you've kind of gravitated towards projects that are trying to like recover hope and cynicism, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, good place. I think, well, you know, it sort of varies. I think that, you have sort of more hopeful stories like I guess The Good Place, and like I guess Watchmen is a little hopeful in some ways, and Station 11 is certainly, but then Succession is, I think, is like deeply cynical show.
Has like all of the attention on the Tulsa anniversary made you like think about the work you did on Watchmen, starting the season with that? Have people been talking to you about it a lot?
Yeah, a lot of people have been reaching out about it. And I think that, the thing that I say, people have been reaching out and saying like, Watchmen feels so prescient. And the thing that I can't, I'm happy that people like the show, but I just say that history is prescient, Right. I think that particularly when that's a show about history, and particularly when you're talking about things like racism and police violence and white supremacist violence, that is just something that has a long entrenched tradition in America. So I think that, if you're going to, I don't think that Watchmen's necessarily prescient. I think that Watchmen is just about racism and violence against Black people. And, in America, you can sort of set your watch to right. racism and violence against Black people like rearing its head at some point. So, right. I mean, if it wasn't, 6 months from Watchmen premiering, it would have been like a year from Watchmen premiering, or maybe 2 years from right. Watchmen premiering. But it's going to happen eventually. So I just think that history is prescient. I don't think Watchmen's necessarily prescient.
Yeah.
When it was announced that Trump was doing his rally on Juneteenth in Tulsa, I had a couple places reach out to me and ask me if I was interested in writing an essay about that fact. And I considered one of them, and I ultimately had to turn it down because of time constraints. But I think that ultimately, that kind of work where it's like sitting down to write 1,500 words about why you should care about the fact that the president is holding his rally in this place of like horrific tragedy and like a horrific racist massacre on this day that's very important to Black people in the United States. It's like, I could do that, or you could just watch the opening of Watchmen. You could
right,
watch
you could just watch the first 5 minutes.
The first 10,
yeah,
you watch the first 5 or 10 minutes of that show and realize like why this is so disgusting and why this person should not be doing this. And right. I think that to me, that's, like I miss essays sometimes, but I also, there's moments when I just want to, that's what I want to do. I just want to sort of do a TV show about it, or do some bit of like historical fiction about it, as opposed to sitting down and writing another 2,000 words about why you should care about this.
Right. And well, there's also, and there are people who continue to be able to do this in ways that I find like incredibly clarifying and admirable, but sometimes there's a way in which like I personally often just don't feel equal to like, it's like, how many times can you say, here's why it's bad that our president is fucking so racist, like, it's like,
I wrote this thing called The Racism Beat like 6 years ago.
I remember that.
It was just about, that was sort of towards the end. And it's just, that's how I feel about all this now, is like, I would, if I were still writing about Donald Trump, I feel like I would just have to say like, he's racist. Like he's a racist. He's a racist. Like I just feel like that's what you're doing for 4 years,
Right.
And at some point in time, it must feel just like screaming into an abyss.
Right. Or just like, like I also kind of feel like everything I write, or like one thing I've been trying to find a way around, and maybe this is why I'm like thinking about ways to do it through fiction, is like, I feel like a subtext of everything that I write, or most things that I write, is like capitalism is bad, and it's like, and like, we all know that now. Like, it's like, I mean, this whole and then the way that it's like tied up with racism and, but it's like, how could the pandemic have made it any clearer, that, and it's, I'm sort of like, I gotta find a different way about writing about this thing.
So does that mean, are you interested in getting into film, television?
Yeah, I'm inching into it a little bit. Trying to see. For the last 4 years, my job at the New Yorker, it's been amazing. Like I only talk to my editor and the people I'm calling for work. And so it's so efficient, like there's just no wasted time. There's no emails, there's no meetings. It's just like pure writing. But I think I'm kind of wanting to switch it up a little bit in some way before it's just like, me sitting in front of my laptop for the rest of my life, like not talking to anyone but my editor,
Yeah, absolutely. This has been really nice. It's been really nice catching up.
I know
it's
not as nice as like actually getting to see you in a bar in LA, but you know, next time.
It was great talking to y'all. I am going to check on my peppers. We're obviously looking for them to be nice and shrivelly. They're probably not there yet, but I'm just gonna check. Don't forget to turn your oven off. I always forget to turn my oven off. This is my curse since I was a kid. This is exactly what they're supposed to look like. They are nicely shriveled. They're almost that burnt green color I was telling you about. They've got like charred bits of white beans spilling out. Like these are the platonic ideal of this dish. We nailed it, folks. Check that out. I'm gonna eat it quickly so it doesn't fall. Ooh, hot. Well, this was amazing. I'm gonna keep eating this. Cord and Jia, it was fantastic getting to spend this virtual dinner party with you. I hope you all get to have plenty of virtual dinner parties and eventually real dinner parties at home. But in the meantime, make a stuffed poblano and let's get through this together. Oh my goodness. Yum.